4 to say he had a family emergency. He could not be here tonight. Okay, awesome.
Okay. What about the challenge of it? Card?
Surgery, you're up.
Sir. You have
Sure.
the first seat. John the second seat.
And Christopher before you.
Oh yeah, behind you.
Okay, the hot seat. Great. Okay, what we're going to ask is that David's going to, he's already assigned numbers to see who's going to go first. They're going to speak for 5 minutes on, 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Okay. Okay. We do have a lot of questions. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So do we have...
Is that our grandchild?
I broke them by District 2 and District 4.
Well, we need to kind of shuffle them up. Okay, so with that, you're just give me your... Okay, good. Oh, okay. Okay, so this is going to go for 2 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and do the timer. You're going to see me go like this. When you're down to 10 seconds, and then I'll say thank you.
Okay, what we'd like to do, we're going to start first and then rotate. And you'll have 1 minute rebuttals if you'd like it. If it's not necessary, please state which district you're running for. And we have, as citizens here, we have to vote for a candidate from District 2. Is 4? District 2 and District 4. Okay. Will be on the ballot. So there'll be 5 names on the ballot. Yeah.
Segregated.
Okay, that's what I thought we did that. Okay.
Oh, thank you so much.
First question, we'd like you to start by telling us a little about yourself, your experience, and A, what you have plans in your, if you're elected, what you'll do in the next term for the A, the city, and B, the district.
Is that one question?
Yeah, in 2 minutes to start, yes. We try to keep you on your toes. We don't want anybody just going on and saying, it's a nice day in Lake Worth today.
Could you repeat the question? There were
The question is, okay, if elected, first a little background on yourself and why you're running, and then what you plan on doing if elected during the term, A, for the city, and B, the district that you're running in. Okay? Or do you think it's one and the same? You can answer that way too.
Good evening. My name is Ryan Meyer, and I'm a candidate for District 4 Commissioner here in Lake Worth. I am proudly endorsed for this position by the American Federation of Labor and Congress of Industrial Organizations, by the National Organization of Women, and by Democracy for America. I came to Lake Worth with my family when I was in high school. I graduated and went to college, lived in Atlanta, Georgia, but came back to Lake Worth because I think this is a special community and I feel at home here. My public service background includes serving on our city's sister city board and serving for 1 year as an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer with the Homeless Coalition of Palm Beach County. I was motivated to run for office in Lake Worth for several reasons. Number 1, 4 of our 5 elected officials have walked into their positions of authority without having a single vote cast for them. In my opinion, that is not a good democratic process. For my district, I did not want that to happen again. I would like the citizens of my district to have a choice in the next election cycle. I believe transparency in our city government has deteriorated in the past 2 to 3 years. There are less public meetings than there used to be. Therefore, much less public input on decisions that affect all of us. If we're going to ask the public to approve millions of dollars in infrastructure improvements, we have to listen to their concerns. In 2013, we had a public vote on height limits in our downtown core. Nearly 60% of the public voted to keep our height limits at 45 feet. It was discovered some 5 months later that the commission never submitted the results of that election to the Department of State in Tallahassee and never amended our city's charter.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you. I'm glad we have a microphone here. Well, many of you do know me. My name is John Zerdy. I've been your city commissioner here for 2.5 years. And I didn't walk into this. I came to public meetings for 2 years prior to that. I've been in Bryant Park Neighborhood Association for a couple of years prior to that. And I have been on a number of boards within the city in terms of our liaison for our neighborhood association, the President's Council. So many of you know me because of all the years I've been up there. I went to a lot of these meetings prior to that because it's important to get experience. Now my opponent talks about being on the Sister City Board. However, he was appointed in August of 2011. However, he refused to take his ethics training. He was then removed off of the board in March of 2012. He never really ever had a vote because you need to have ethics trainings. I don't know why. I moved here over 8 or 9 years ago with my amazing wife Jamie over there and my 3 kids, and I bought a house that was abandoned. A lot of you do know this and many of you don't. But we had a lot of problems here trying to get things through the city. That's changed right now. A lot of things are much easier to get through the city because we've cleaned up a lot of our land development regulations and our zoning. We did not have a 45-foot height limit. The height limit is 100 feet. It was lowered to 65 feet in a very small area over here to the side. My opponent has no idea because he doesn't come to anything. I haven't seen him at one city commission meeting before he even decided to run for office here. Also, been around in my neighborhood was going to put up a 5-story condominium across the street from me. Why? Because the zoning code said it could, and some of you already know this, that the land development regulations for historic said no. Anyway, I will work hard to keep things moving, lower your electric rates, bring investment in the city, and keep things moving forward.
Thank you, John.
Hello everybody, my name is Serge Jerome Jr. I came to Lake Worth back in 1988 with my parents when I was basically in elementary school. I grew up here and I went to school, I went to Oral Roberts University, I got a degree in finance there. I came back, I went to Florida A&M University and I got a degree, Juris Doctorate there. I've been back here in Lake Worth since 2011. And I'm running for city commission because I've been involved in the city. I've been, watching what's going on closely. I actually served on the Park and Rec board last year, and I just saw that the city is trying to grow. We're trying to take the city in a new direction. We're trying to do something good with Lake Worth here. But I feel like everybody on the commission is not on the same page. There's not a sense of teamwork going on. And so I saw the need for me to step up and to take a step of leadership. I have a lot of people in my church that live here in the city of Lake Worth that know what's going on in the city of Lake Worth because people have come to them, knocked on their doors, but they don't tell them the truth. They tell them, lies, and they give them myths. And when I saw that, I felt like that wasn't right. And we need somebody that's going to stand up in office, that's going to be honest about what we're trying to do, and that's going to try to take the city in a new direction.
Good evening. Hello? Sometimes I've been accused of being too loud. Can everybody hear me all right? Thank you. All right. My name's Christopher McFoy. I'm an acting commissioner. I've been a commissioner for 2 terms, started in 2010. Prior to that, in the mid-2000s, I was active with the Political Action Committee when there was a move at the beach to change the zoning to allow a lot more commercial activity there, which I knew a lot of people in the community were not happy about. And I got involved at that time, have been involved since with various campaigns and with planning and zoning, and as I say, on the commission since 2010. My background is I actually have a Florida background. My master's is from University of from Florida in Gainesville, and my PhD and undergraduate are from Cornell University. I grew up in Wisconsin. I've been in South Florida 20 years. I've been in Lake Worth 16 of those years. I did a lot of history work. My other life is I'm an Everglades research scientist. That's what brought me to Florida. And once I'd been here a little while, I started hearing about Lake Worth, and a lot of people said, hey, you need to go to Lake Worth. I've been here, as I say, 16 years. What I bring to this perspective is both local, in-depth knowledge of being here, technical perspective. My specialties include both water and electric, which we, as you know, have utilities in both of those areas. I also bring a much broader perspective in that I've lived in many different parts of the world. I speak a number of languages that are spoken in this city, and I have always had a very strong multicultural interest. As you know, Lake Worth is a very diverse community. It's diverse in terms of backgrounds from different parts of the world, in terms of languages. It's also diverse in terms of incomes. And somehow we have to make this whole city work together. That's part of my motivation.
Thank you. The only thing that wasn't addressed that last time. Okay. In 1 minute, why are you the best candidate for the district you're running in? Then we're going to start with John.
Well, as I said, in District 4, I was on the board for Bryant Park. I've been active, a lot of you know me from working in the median strips we just talked about in South Palm Park. I told you the story about the condominium that was trying to get built across the street from us. And I believe really that in my district over here, we've worked real hard on trying to bring new investment into South Palm Park and the South Federal area, which some of those properties have been picked up and are being reworked and redesigned actually in the future to get rid of the same kind of element that has been a real issue over the years. And so I think in that term that I have an ability to be very effective, having been very active here when my opponent has not at all.
I feel that it's not just about my district, though I feel I'm the best candidate for my district because that I represent. I feel like I can represent everybody in the district, but it's not just about the district. I'm running for the district because I care about the entire city. So it's not just about my district, but I'm running for this district because I feel like I'm the best candidate for this city.
I have to agree with Mr. Jerome that I don't think it's about districts. When we get calls, and I think this is probably true for all the commissioners, we don't ask what district are you in, we ask how can we help. So I think it's the interests of the city that are at heart. Why am I the best commissioner or best candidate for this seat? There are 5 members on our commission. There's a reason why you have 5 or 7 or 9 or 3 and not just 1, because you want a diversity of ideas and a diversity of outlooks and a diversity of backgrounds. It is very true that I do not always agree with my fellow commissioners. Many of you are aware of that. There's a reason for that. I believe that a number of things that I hear from the community do not line up with some of the things that other members on the commission have pushed for. So I speak my conscience, I speak what I hear from the community, and what both my scientific and faith-based background tells me to do.
A commissioner is an individual who is supposed to enact the will of his or her constituents. That is not happening presently in the city. I do have experience. I am very involved in the city and the county at large. What you need as a commissioner is someone who is approachable, someone who will listen to your concerns, someone who will respect your vote, someone who will make Lake Worth the city that the majority of the voters want for it to be. That and a number of major organizations think that I am the best candidate for this position. Thank you.
That brings us to the 2020 bond issue. And it was voted down by the voters. Do you believe, this is a yes or no question.
Let me just clarify something. This is still going to be voted on and since
Right, so they can't talk about it.
We're going in the past. We're not going to go in the future.
Can't be yes or no.
Can't be yes or no?
There's definitely a sunshine issue. We have 3 commissioners
Right,
in the
they
room.
can't do it.
Okay.
It's definitely shaky territory.
Okay, so we don't want to discuss the 2020 at all.
You can't.
Okay. All right. Next question will bring us back to Federal Highway. As was just mentioned by one of the candidates, the Federal Highway is improving. However, we still have the prostitution problem, the drug problem, and all the other things going on in Federal Highway, as well as halfway houses, etc. We're talking about Southern Federal from Lake to South 18th Street, and who's very concerning our neighborhood. It butts right up onto it. The drugs and the prostitutions are moving now into our streets because the cops are patrolling South Federal. How do you envision solving this problem? Also, this reverse sting operations, the girls the cops bring in are so well dressed, you know, you have to be a moron to walk up to one of those girls. Girls that put it on their hairdos are not the hookers on Federal Highway.
They're cute.
It's called marketing.
So the question is, how do we feel like we can fight crime in the city? Fighting crime on one street is not going to work, obviously. We all know that. So if we're going to fight crime, there has to be something that we do citywide. That's going to start with increasing the police presence in the city. You know, when I was in high school, that's when we had a lot of problems with gangs and drugs and prostitution and all that. And then Poppy Sheriff basically came in and cleaned it all up. So we know that it's possible to get this all cleaned up. We know that it's possible to bring the city to a better level, to a lower crime level. But the city is going to have to devote some resources to it. It's just not going to happen magically. One of the things we're going to have to do is we're going to have to get rid of these abandoned houses. We're going to have to find one way or another to either, if Pompey Sheriff is not boarding them up, you know, if they're slumlords, whatever the case may be, through code enforcement, we're going to have to find some way to deal with all these, you know, abandoned houses. Because this is where these drug dealers and these prostitutes take refuge. This is basically their base of operations. So if we're serious about cleaning up the city, that's going to be, you know, something, cleaning up these abandoned houses that we have all over the city, these foreclosed houses that the bank is not doing anything with. That's going to be something that's going to go hand in hand with taking care of the crime in the city, along with, you know, bringing in more police officers. I mean, sheriff officers.
My opponent mentions, you know, a logical thing, have more police. What my opponent is not aware is that we have a 10-year contract with PBSO. There's certainly very widespread approval of the work that PBSO is doing in our community, but we do not have the possibility to increase police presence. We're full up. The police and first responders eats up better than half of our budget. Unless we're talking about a tax increase, millage increase, we don't have any way to increase people. What we have to do is police more intelligently. I meet very regularly with Captain Silva. I've spent time at workshops relating to police recently. I do a lot of communication between the community and Captain Silva, as I mentioned. I completely agree with Mr. Jerome on the issue of vacant and abandoned buildings. That is something that, and again, I've worked with PBSO on that. We managed to get some of them dealt with. I've been pretty active with that recently as well. That will certainly help. I think there are other things that we can do. I've heard for a long time, as long as I've run the issue of folks being on Dixie Highway and moving into the communities, it's a challenge. They do these things. I'm not aware of the $100 hairdos. I think they probably do a pretty good job. I'm surprised about $100 hairdos, but obviously anything that we can do more is a good thing, but it's not going to happen with more people. One of the things that I've been talking to people a lot about is community policing, and one of the ways to do that is more people on foot and more people on bicycle. And I've talked with several officers who do that already, would like to see more of that happening. It builds relationships with both residents and makes it a lot more likely that you see people right away who shouldn't be doing whatever they're doing. So that's an angle that I think we do have some leverage, that and the abandoned homes.
As Commissioner McVoy said, we do spend half of our annual general fund budget on police force. It's double what Royal Palm pays and nearly double what Wellington pays, and neither of those cities have had the spike in crime that we have had. I think the Palm Beach Sheriff's Office is a wonderful addition to our community, but we pay a lot of money for them, and it isn't wrong to ask for more presence, more support, and to encourage them to come up with a better plan to solve this problem. As Commissioner, I would work directly with the police force to ensure that they were working on this problem diligently. Regarding halfway houses, you may have read the recent article in the Palm Beach Post talking about what they did in Boynton Beach. ADA regulations restrict us from saying that halfway houses can't move into our neighborhoods, but if we could include halfway houses in commercial zoning regulations, we could restrict halfway houses to areas that were zoned commercially and move them out of our residence. This is a plan that I would like to explore. Thank you.
Another really good example. I know you have a lot of enthusiasm, but in commercial districts, you're not allowed residential zoning uses, so you can't do that. As far as the way to handle this, you know, we had an officer at the last meeting at Genesis. He's a 20-year officer here who said in his line of work, he has yet to see a crime committed that started into action. It's up to you all that make the call that increases it, and that's when they get called out. They do respond quickly. I get a lot of those emails that say, oh, there was a crime here, even on L Street, we apprehended them. The apprehension rate is going to be coming out of statistic very soon, and you might be pleasantly surprised. In order to prevent crime, you have a young lady here, Mary Lindsay, you all heard about this already. You voted to have a neighborhood-wide crime watch. You all have a very active neighborhood here in South Palm Park. I know that, because I hear the number of calls that get made. You all can help on the crime prevention. Our police force helps with crime apprehension. And as far as investment coming in, these are new people who came in, are picking up these places, and are going to fix them up and turn them around. We're not letting them sit there and then turn into derelict. The police force has also come in and taken emergency action in a number of cases. On South L Street, we called it in. They came in and boarded it up within 24 hours. So it does need all of your help to help have eyes and act. That's really what helps. Commissioner McVoy is correct. We have a certain amount of budget. We do have a lot that we're paying here. Most of it's from the payments before we even gotten here as a commission to pay for the pensions. We have obligations we cannot get out of. That's unknown to somebody that hasn't been to any of the meetings or been aware of anything. So please, you have to understand, you have to be involved, you have to know what you're talking about, and that's why I've been here for the last 5 years being quite involved, not just come lately at the last minute.
Okay. This may touch on a gray area for a second, but let me finish the statement, then ask the question. During the public meeting on the bond issue at the Lake Worth Playhouse, our city manager, Michael Bornstein, stated as fact and handed out a handout that only 16% of the properties in the city pay property tax. What? Now comes the question. Okay, we went to the past, we touched it, I'm sorry. What are your plans in the future to make the recourse equitable among all the residents instead of just the 16% of us who are paying property taxes? And that includes everything on the property tax bill.
That's a violation.
1 cent.
Actually, that's not a violation, sunshine. We're asking for speculation.
Okay, you guys don't want that question? Okay.
I'd like to hear your answer. I don't want to make that the first.
They left the first statement.
We'll touch on it for 1 minute.
Both commissioners are in, and he can comment as well. Both of us recently went to an ethics training for municipal elected officials all around Palm Beach County. The sunshine law portion of that was presented by our city attorney, who raised the fact that in fact there's a little bit of question as to whether we can even be here and talk about anything. In Sarasota, there's a $100,000 lawsuit in progress about two commissioners being at a commission meeting talking about things that might be voted on. He cautioned us all to be careful about doing that. I spoke with Marianne about that earlier today. I spoke with Glenn. He says if you folks are taking notes and it's sort of publicly noticed, maybe it's okay, but it's gray area. The issue is if we talk about things at a non-citywide public meeting that can reasonably be expected to vote on in the future, that's a sunshine law violation, and you can add to that.
Well, also the city clerk posted today, just to make sure that it was a public notice, just for us to be here and let people know. But this is a topic that can be and will be and still is being actively discussed, and we do want everybody's input. And we're still gathering it because we've got another workshop coming up. So we really need to refrain from that kind of discussion with more than one of us in the room. I'm sorry. But we're really, come on to the workshop. It's on the city website. It's on the 21st, and we can get together.
I'm sorry, I'll change the question. Okay, there have been talk in the past of making Lake Worth a destination city. What is your proposals to make Lake Worth a destination city? And by that, where people from all over the world want to come here.
Couldn't remember what our microphone was. I think that Lake Worth already is a destination city. I talk to a lot of people as I meet them around town, and I'm surprised at how many people come from all sorts of parts of the U.S. and some from other parts of the world. I have opportunities to speak Dutch to people, to speak French to people, to speak German to people. If I knew Polish, I could do that. If I knew Finnish, there are people from a lot of different parts of the world. What do I think we want to do? I think we want to capitalize on our history, which, as Ted can tell you here, the way that we're laid out is very different from other parts of South Florida. That's a very important part of what gives us our character. It's not the only thing, but we already have a reputation as being different from other parts of South Florida. Nobody confuses us with West Palm Beach. My intentions to enhance that is to make us increase the arts part by really supporting artists' ability to live and work here, and green. We want to be a real environmental city that is actually doing things. We have that capacity.
As I walk around our downtown here in Lake Worth, and also the beach property, activity seems to be limited to drinking. Drinking is fine, but there's so much more that we could be doing here. Lake Worth is one of the few municipalities that owns its own section of beach. But when you go to the beach, what do we have to do there? There's nowhere to rent snorkel gear. There's no concessions directly on the beach. You have to walk far